So we'll just finish off this section of the unit talking about some of these traps and tensions in practice. Sometimes it's really difficult when you're a new practitioner because you might not be aware of lots of things and you don't have a lot of experience or practice wisdom to fall back on. So sometimes our skill as social workers is just refined through experience. So sometimes we know how to do things in a different way. We might find different ways of navigating bureaucracy, or we have different ways of responding to clients or speaking to people based on past experience. But sometimes our values or beliefs or ideas, sometimes we get that right, sometimes we don't. But it's just something to be aware of, that as a new practitioner, sometimes you'll hear things or see workers do things and you think, how do they know that? That's not in the textbook, and they are learnt processes that you have as a professional. There's also a tension, I think, between these ideas of evidence and what is real evidence and what is not. So there's always going to be this emphasis on positivist, hard scientific evidence, but actually we learn a lot through the process of reflection, from listening to lived experience, through the stories that people tell us. So there is actually a tension in social work behind, what do we believe? Do we believe the evidence that we read about in scientific journals, or do we believe this more kind of constructed reality, I suppose? We can think of evidence-based practice, or this idea of evidence, in a little bit of a different way. We can think about it as a critically reflective approach. So one where we seek to value evidence gained from our experience, from context, as well as research evidence. So just know, when we talk about evidence, we can think of it in this much richer and more deep kind of fashion. What an evidence base does is, if we want to be sort of cynical here, is an evidence base can give us legitimacy. It can make us look like a professional body. We think, well, we need evidence. Doctors work with evidence, medical doctors, psychologists. A lot of people say their evidence is quite shady, actually. So it can be an ethical responsibility as well, though, and it can be a critical approach, though, is looking at evidence, news articles, policy. All these things are really important. And actually, I would say to you, it's important for us to have a social work research culture so that we can counter potentially damaging or harmful kinds of information that occurs. We do want high quality research, though, that we use in practice, not just any old thing. Do need to be wary, though, that it's not always easy to gather that data about social issues. We don't get a lot of large-scale kind of quantitative studies for the things that we're looking for. So looking for this really positive-based research to inform our practice is really difficult. There's quite a tension in us doing that. And if we're going to share this research, we're going to share these ideas, it needs to be accessible and clear for people as well. What I would say is, don't prioritise book learning over practice wisdom, or practice wisdom over book learning, or don't prioritise lived experience over research experience or things you've read about in research. You need to be using all these forms of knowledge and applying them in a critical way. So using critical thinking skills, critical analysis, all of those things. So we're working with uncertainty all the time. So we have to try and embrace some of the things that we do actually know in these processes. When you think of the theories that you work with in your practice, your professional narratives or your practice frameworks, you need to think about, well, what theory am I using? Does it fit with my practice? So there needs to be, you need to walk the talk, is what I would say quite simply there. Think about the theory. Who does it include and exclude? Does it deepen my understanding of a situation? This is an important one. How would the service user feel about my use of theory? Would they be comfortable with that gendered analysis that I'm using? That doesn't mean you don't use it, but you need to think about that, because if that theory is the root of the intervention, it's the epistemological basis of what you're doing, then that's going to rub through in your practice with people. And think about, is that appropriate? Will that make them feel comfortable? Think about the context that a lot of these things were developed in. So when we start using mental health language or diagnoses or descriptions about behaviour, they come from quite oppressive contexts historically, and are embedded with a lot of kind of meaning. So just think about whether that's what you want to bring into your practice. Sometimes you could be a critical social worker working in mental health. You're going to have to use that language with other professionals sometimes because that's what's demanded of you. Doesn't mean you have to use it with your clients. So you have to walk a lot of lines here, play a lot of roles. You have to think really deeply about theories and language as you use them. And that's when we get to this idea of synthesis, really. How do you synthesize or bring it all together? So how do we look at the evidence and then the art of practice or the practice wisdom? How do we bring in diversity, but we also bring in this systematic kind of knowledge? What's empirical, what's relational, what's subjective? We have to bring all of that kind of work together. This is why it's a professional qualification, because it's not easy to do all of this. People might think so, but it's pretty hard, right? You need to be able to articulate your narrative or your practice framework, because you need to be able to justify what you're doing to other people, to managers, but also to clients, to funding bodies, all of these people. So it's really important to be able to do that in professional terms, but also in lay terms, in really easy to understand terms. So, you're applying this theory and research to practice. It's really, really important that you can do that in a clear, concise, understandable way. You want to be able to critically reflect. I think this is the most important skill to have as a social worker, if I'm totally honest. I could be biased because this is an area of work I'm really interested in. But don't just assume that your assumptions and knowledge about things are right. Don't blindly work from those positions. We want to look at alternative explanations. We want to go into those places of discomfort and really explore what's going on there. We want to make clear why we've made those decisions and those conclusions that we've come to, and what our biases are sometimes in those. Your theoretical lens is really how you're making sense of what you're doing and how you're doing it and why you're doing it. People aren't going to, a client's probably never going to ask you what your theoretical lens is. They may, but certainly people will be asking for this in job interviews or if you go to court or any of these kinds of spaces. And it will come through in a lot of the documentation that you're using. Sometimes people talk more about approaches or plans or things that they're using, but they all come from a theoretical basis. So be prepared to enunciate that with people is what I would say. Don't be wedded to a particular idea. It can change, and that's totally fine in working with someone. Our initial perception might change over time. Don't record information poorly. Okay, spend a few more minutes doing it than rushing it. And this is something that new workers have trouble with. How do I record this information? And this is why we give you so much writing assessment within the master's program, because we want you to be able to record this information as quickly as possible, but thoroughly as possible. Yeah, thorough is more important than quick, because people might be relying on that information to make important decisions. So I'll give you an example. I once worked for DV Connect, which is the domestic violence phone line, and we would have files for people, or we might be referring someone to a refuge. Sometimes I had to pick up other people's cases as they went off shift, or they had to pick up mine. And if the information isn't correct, I could say to a woman, well, I don't have a refuge space, and she goes home and she's murdered that night. Okay, you don't want to be the person who stuffs up there. You're going to make sure the information is correct. You provide feedback to the client, not just little, sparkles of feedback. We want to give people full feedback, as much feedback as we can. If we don't have enough engagement and collaboration with the client or with other service providers, obviously that's going to be hard to work around that. You know, sometimes we have people who are sent to us that we have to work with, non-voluntary clients. So we work around that as best we can. Sometimes we focus on the obvious, the most visible, or the presenting problem, and we ignore other things. So that's why that thorough assessment is important. Or sometimes we focus on what we want to focus on or our agency wants to focus on, which is not what the client wants to focus on. So the focus is important. Other things to avoid. Coming to a conclusion without enough information. So sometimes that can occur, you know, when we have to make decisions quickly. Advocate for more time to make a decision is what I would say. That is your job. Not recording things properly or not giving them sufficient weight. And that sometimes comes because we don't have enough supervision, reflection. We haven't really thought about what's going on here. So that's why those practices are important, so that we do give enough weight to what we're talking about. Not participating or not being given opportunities for supervision or critical reflection. So you can actually pay for supervision external from your work, and I do recommend it if you're not getting good or any supervision. Other things people have done is set up their own kind of communities of supervision and reflection, and that of course you can run for free, so it doesn't have to cost you any money. So there's some ideas for you. So lots of things to consider in this week's class. All right, thanks.